Greetings and welcome back once again. We are live. We are live. We are live. I plan to come live and I finally got it to work. YouTube and Facebook. And YouTube, it's been a long time. I have not abandoned you. My computer been acting kind of wild and crazy. So usually it's easier just to go live on Facebook. But we got a YouTube family out there and we will be coming back with more information soon. I had intended to do a video, and I hope everybody's doing well, by the way. But I had intended to do, and that's the thing when you're doing double broadcasting, because when one goes out, it kind of takes your attention, and you're like, what's going on here? And it shouldn't be a wireless problem. It shouldn't be a wireless problem. So we're going to give Facebook like 2 seconds to come back up. All right, it's back. Talmid, welcome to the conversation. Devon, welcome to the conversation. There's so much I want to talk about, and lately I don't really have the time to talk as much as I used to. Just so much going on. I realized it's the 1 year anniversary of launching the Yummy Cottage fundraiser, not the concept for the Yummy Cottage, but the Yummy Cottage fundraiser. So all praise be to the Most High on that one. We're still pushing, we're still moving, and more to come. But that's not what we're going to talk about tonight. Now we're going to talk about current events. So I've been taking a little time to catch up. Why is Facebook hating on? Now that I got YouTube up, now Facebook is hating on me. Come on now, Facebook. Let's they're gonna give. I don't know why it shouldn't. The signal shouldn't be weak. I should just say that. I'm gonna give the signal a little time to come up. Again, sorry if you're on YouTube and you have to experience the wait. So I'll go ahead, type whatever you have to type in the. What was that? Oopsie. So we want to talk about a number of things. This is kind of like just a live type of discussion here. And man, Facebook is hating on the kid this night. The Batiahu, welcome to the conversation. Only Love, where you play that, Only Love? Yeah, I know I keep saying it, but we getting there. It's gonna be real good when you get it. I don't know why the broadcast is breaking up. Finally, when I get YouTube to work, the broadcast is breaking up. But there's a number of things that I wanted to kind of touch on. Number one, I've been doing a lot of pop research lately. Sister Connie, welcome to the conversation, which I usually don't do, but I tend to go fishing to find out or kind of try to understand certain things. You know what I mean? One thing is, you see these lights when you're looking at stardom. I was reading or getting some excerpts from a book because I was intrigued by this process, which is the process of idol making. When someone makes an idol or casts an image, right? To make this idol, it's a whole concept, it's a process, it's a formula. And this is one of the things that has and continues to get our people caught up. And I know Facebook is going to be like, why, they missed me because it's stopping again. And I don't know why, while I'm giving them this information. So if you're with me on YouTube, shout out to you. I'm going to get this thing one more time. And we are under the palm. Sometimes I broadcast from the moon of Israel. But right now we're under the palm. Sorry about that, y'all. Anywho, if this thing keeps stopping, I'm going to have to go find out. It's okay, sis. It's okay. You can go out and do what I like to call research and development. So when you go to other vegan spots, there's one actually I want to go to. It's in Eatonville. And y'all know I get distracted easily. It's in Eatonville outside of Orlando. And it's a new one. A Jamaican woman started it. And it's called Dejan Eats. So if you're in that area, but I definitely want to check it out because, There's some things that are vegan that I don't eat. And then there's some ways that you can learn. You always can learn. Food is a very social thing. You know what I'm saying? No, we're on YouTube at Under the Palm. We're Under the Palm on YouTube. Because this is kind of an Under the Palm discussion. And so I wanted to go under the palm and speak about it. We were supposed to have Brother Akwete on today. Not sure if he's busy, but we were supposed to come back and talk about and hear his thoughts on the whole witchcraft situation, the scenario that's happening in the nation. And so I wasn't able to do that, but I did say I was going to come on. So if I'm breaking up on Facebook, come and check us out on YouTube. I guess I'm going to tell them that when they come back again. Hold on one second. Facebook never really breaks up like this. This is very, very strange that Facebook is breaking up in this manner. Hope everybody's doing well. YouTube, again, if I'm breaking up and you can't get me, just come Under the Palm on YouTube because Facebook is acting strange. Anywho, there's a concept of that when we think about idolatry, right, which is a prohibition. What's up, Justice? Long time no see, Sister Justice. I hope you and the baby's doing well. Hope to see you soon. Yeah, Facebook is acting up. Facebook is acting up. So I'm on YouTube, Under the Palm at YouTube. There's a process when the Torah tells us about not subscribing and not bowing down, not making images or bowing down to them. There's a concept, there's a formula within the human mind that has a desire to create an image and then imbue this image with power and then worship this image, right? Give thanks for tuning in, brother. Thank you so much. And so when you look at how it's changed throughout the centuries and millennia, in some cultures, it has changed. And in other cultures, it just has morphed a little bit, but it's still the same thing. And so because truth is universal, when you look for the principle, you will still see it. So for instance, in the stage of Hollywood, they call it, my goodness, Facebook, why are you hating on me today? Maybe if I put it on this side, y'all think if I move it, I'm gonna have to move my whole get up now. They call it star making. I'm gonna talk to you, YouTube, because for whatever reason, Facebook is acting all the way crazy. The router is just right there. So I don't foresee any reason why it could just be breaking up just for no reason. It's not a usual thing. Shalom and welcome to the conversation. So this conversation about, or the discussion about star making and idolatry is something that is still present in our society. We actually have shows like American Idol and Idol. We have talk about stars and making these images, casting these images, these projections of these stars or superstars that are not really the person, the flesh and blood person, but it's just the image. It's a straw man of that person, right? Of which people are supposed to now worship, give the adoration, attention. And the Bible gives a warning against these things because it will lead one off. Joyce, welcome to the conversation. It will lead one off into different directions and misunderstanding or misconstruing from whence your power comes, right? And it's so therefore YouTube it's very important for us to realize how subtle it has become in this day and age, where it's not necessarily overtly, you're not necessarily going to see, or maybe you will in some spaces, a stone statue or whatever the case may be. But when you glorify, when you elevate people in your mind's eye and make them to become the idol to you, which you cast them in the image that you desire to them to be. Either sometimes the person gives you that image, or you may give yourself that image. For instance, you may see a teacher, you may see a leader, you may see someone who has some qualities or attributes that you desire, and you begin to cast this image in your mind, because that's what an idolater does. And again, it's so subtle that sometimes we're not aware that that's what we're doing. And so the idolater, either you have a cast, a mold that you're going to now make an image. You're going to heat it up. You're going to pour it. But the thing about an image is once it's set, if you deviate from that, then it's become broken. It's become tainted. I'm sorry, Facebook. It keeps going up. Yeah, it's breaking up. It's breaking up. Maybe I'll try to come back to Facebook again. Hold on, Facebook. We'll be back. Sorry, YouTube. Facebook is acting up today. And so I was looking at that process because it may translate different for us in this day and age, but it's still the same thing. There was a book that I was reading, I was researching, and I'm like, well, what is this star system? You know what I'm saying? And what is this about? And it actually was a book. There are many books, but there's a book called The Star System, and talking about Hollywood casting these images, starting with naming. There was a practice back in the day of which they would name the stars. Sometimes you would come with a name, and they still do it today, and be like, well, that's not a good name. What's your stage name going to be? And then they go about molding you to see what type of image do we want you to become? What do we want you to portray to the people? And what happens is the people don't have the agency or the ability to navigate outside of that, because then they're going to be, they're going to be fodder for the fire, essentially. This is out of character. And for instance, what really got me into understanding is how this system kind of consumes our brothers and sisters. So I was looking at the Whitney Houston story, where you have a talent, you have a raw talent, and a lot of times, a lot of melanated entertainers, they start off in the church, right? A lot of the singers, especially in the 50s and 60s, they start off saying they're singing for the Lord, right? And then there is a switch in the mind where I want to be more mainstream. I want to be more widely accepted. And so they go into a space where now somebody begins to cast this image of what you're to be. And so when you see, because I'm going to tell you the truth, back when Bobby and Whitney, what was the name of the show? What was the name of the show, y'all? Back when that show was on, like for a long time, I have not watched TV. For about as old as my daughter is, and Most High bless, she just turned 11 this week. I have not really watched television. So a lot of the popular culture, I'm head first into spirituality and seeking and healing. And so I heard about it, but I was never interested in it, nor did I ever watch it. Like right now, I don't own a TV. My mother keeps trying to give me a TV. I'm like, why are you trying to give me a TV? I don't really watch TV. If it's something I want to watch, then I have YouTube. I mean, come on, it's YouTube. So I say that to say a lot of this stuff is brand new for me, but I'm looking at it through new eyes. In whatever religion or walk of life you are, you will have a character or characters who may seem to the people to be larger than life. And the people begin to cast these images of what they feel the person is supposed to be, how they feel the person is supposed to speak, how they feel the person is supposed to act. And when the people act outside of that, that idol that we casted with our minds is broken. And this is what I see a lot when it comes on to leaders and teachers. For instance, Malcolm X, or for instance, Marcus Garvey, or the real life of Martin Luther King. And then when they show, well, did you know he smoked? And the people are like, ooh, right? Because you have this image, civil rights leader, fight out against injustice, speak up for the people. And so when he deviates from that, and you talk about possibly adultery, or you talk about possibly cursing, you're like, whoa, this is not the person I know. So this is just a warning to the wise. As we continue to grow, we have to continue to keep in mind that the people who we are looking at, the people who you are elevating, are people. They're people. I meat the end of the day, they're people. I'm watching a lot of biographical stories now, like Nat King Cole and Tupac and Whitney Houston, and I'm looking at the common thread that happened into all of them, and what, quote, stardom, what this elevation of the soul in the eyes of the people does to the person. It robs the person of something. It robs them to a certain degree of their humanity, because now everybody who's watching is projecting onto them what you want them to be, and not really looking at who they are. So for instance, and I'm going somewhere with this, it has something to do, it's current events, right? And so when you look at Whitney Houston and you hear all the people screaming and they're saying, I love you, and they're doing all these things, and the adoration and the attention, what they love is how she or her singing made them feel. Because now when they had to see the real Whitney, when they had to experience who she was outside of the spotlight, it made them uncomfortable. It challenged the idol or the image that they had cast in their minds, right? And so they didn't love her when she was on Bobby and Whitney. They didn't love her when she had on jeans and she just looked regular. They didn't love her when she wasn't singing and making them feel something in their soul. And so a lot of the times, the reason why we like and attach to people are for selfish reasons. And what happens is the person sometimes thinks it's true. It thinks it's genuine, and not realizing that it's conditional in the sense that as long as you make me feel good. So now I'm going to transition, right? This is what people do to stars. And stars, I don't think stars, I use the word term loosely, really understand what they're signing up for. A lot of them have a drive, from some that I have like done this little research with, right? They have a drive to be seen, to be heard, to share their gift or their talent or their ability. And then they become addicted to the attention, right? And so it's this two-way street that is very dangerous because the lanes and the lines begin to blur. And so I remember listening one time to an interview with Patti LaBelle, who says when she goes into a supermarket or she goes into a place and the person doesn't know who she is, like they're so used to that attention and that adoration and that elevation in the mind, she stops them and says, don't you know who I am? I'm Patti LaBelle. And it's like, am I supposed to know who you are? I saw that same occurrence happen. And yes, I'm talking about popular culture, and I'm going to bring it over to, because truth is universal. I keep saying it because it is. I saw that same occurrence happen watching this discussion where Beyonce goes to get some two dancers from the continent to teach them authentic dance moves. And when she says to them who they are, who she is, they look at her like, hello. They don't know who she is. And she was like, in her mind, because the thing about a star is you will be as gods, in the sense of you're going to be omnipresent. The more recognizable you are is the more of a star you are. And they have a listing from A even to Z of what level of a star you are based on how much notoriety you have, how much. Are you okay? How much celebrity you have. That's the big one. How much you're celebrated. When you look at the term celebrity, it's talking about how much you're celebrated. Okay. And that does something to the mind of the people in the sense of you should be as gods, knowing good and evil, because there's this thought that you know things that other people don't know, as well as being lifted up in this high place where people then worship you. They give you the adoration. Remember Michael Jackson, they used to fall out and cry for him. And the Torah warns us against worshiping idols. Okay. Speaking of, and I spoke about it before, like I said, I wanted the brother to come on to have the discussion. If you're listening in, go ahead and put something in the chat box so that we know you here and that we know that it's all good in the hood. So that was one of the things that I wanted to share, that we have to be careful in our relationships and our communications with one another. So I'm going to talk now about communication and communication breakdown. That we do this on micro levels. That's the macro level in Hollywood and Bollywood and Nollywood and stardom, because each country has their different variation of all things. Ooh, right? In our communications, in whatever space you may be in, when you begin to respect, and it's okay to respect what it is that somebody does, but when you begin to hold that person up as though that it's that person as opposed to that person being the vessel to bring forth this information, then you kind of set yourself up to begin to cast this image in your mind of, again, what that person should be, how that person should act. And then that space for humanity is gone. And so when that person fails you or that person disappoints you, and sometimes the person may not even be aware of all of this grandiosity that the individual has created in their minds surrounding them. They may not be aware, they may not know. And when that person disappoints you, it's the end of the relationship. It's the end of the friendship. It's the end of this attraction that may have been going on. And that happens a lot. The person becomes disenchanted with the individual because of one thing or another. And we are commanded, we are instructed that when there is an issue that arises, either between brethren, in the household, between sisters, there is a need to go to that individual and speak to the individual about what has occurred, right? Because we all have perspectives there. You've heard the saying, your side, my side, and the truth, okay? So we all have perspectives of how we see the situation. And we will not get a complete understanding of the situation until you go to the person who you feel has offended you. It could be real or imagined, and express to them what you feel the issue is or has been. We don't tend to do that. What we tend to do is go to people who may be on our side of the fence so that we can appease our egos and say, can you believe that such and such did such and such? And girl, I can't believe that. Or, yo, man, that's messed up. And next thing you know, we begin to feel good about the position that we're taking, but we're not really resolving anything. And then that relationship, that friendship, that business endeavor begins to decompose because it wasn't built on a solid foundation. Communication is an integral part of anything that you're trying to do. It is one of the basic building blocks of whatever it is that you're trying to do. You have to have transparency. You have to have the ability to communicate and express yourself in a respected space. Let me see if Facebook is still acting crazy or if it's going to let me do this right now. Because they're going to be like, no. I wanted to talk more about communication because it's important, right? Now, I'm not, and I know in the title I see sisterhood, so I'm going to talk about sisterhood. Oftentimes, we come to whatever relationship we are in. Let me see. I'm going to try again. And shout out to Katrina. Katrina's like, I don't have the time to put together a whole class, but I can definitely talk about or speak about some of the things I've learned, some of the things I've gleaned, and hopefully it'll be beneficial to someone. We come to relationships oftentimes based on our prior exposure and experience, okay, to said form or fashion of a relationship. So for instance, when we come to sisterhood, because that's what's in the title. I spoke a little bit about communication, and I'll speak a little bit about sisterhood. When we come to sisterhood or brotherhood, but in this case, I'm going to talk about sisterhood, we are bringing with us our first exposure to what sisterhood is, because each and every one of us have a different working definition in our mind, irregardless of what Webster has said, because we all have different experiences. Okay, so we all have different expectations of what we think sisterhood is supposed to be. I wonder if I move this thing over here. Let me see something, y'all, because it's still doing the same thing. So we're gonna put it over here. I got a little new apparatus, okay, and my apparatus. See, now it's gonna mess up my lighting and stuff. It's hating on the kid, you know what I'm saying? And I'm in the corner, so maybe it's because I'm in the corner that is acting all crazy. Woo, that thing bright. Oh my goodness, that thing's bright. Oopsie. And this is the common sense approach. I take a common sense approach to a lot of what I share. A lot of what I glean is from observation and experience. Okay? Sisterhood is going to be based on our prior experiences before we come to an adult space. So if you're a sibling, it starts in sibling. When you are, either you're a sibling or you're an only child, and the personalities and your personality and your experience as a child. And again, like I told you, I've been studying and researching popular culture and looking at this debacle that is happening with Tony Braxton family, what do you call it? Braxton family values. Again, they say it's been on how many years? I've never seen it. This is my first time seeing it. But my point is, you have a group of sisters. You have a group of sisters. I'm sorry, Facebook. It keeps, yeah, the connection is acting crazy this night. Miss Michelle, how you doing? Shout out to Miss Michelle. So you have this group of sisters who have these different dynamics because you have different personalities. Okay. So when we talk about sisterhood, we have to, sometimes we bond with persons over experiences. We bond with persons over similarities, likes and dislikes. There are different things that bond you. So to assume that the sisterhood is bonded in positivity is a mistake, because it's not always so. It can be bonded through negativity. It can be bonded through positivity. You can be bonded because you hate something. You can be bonded because I love something. Okay, we're talking about a bond when we're talking about sisterhood. And then we're talking about expectations of each and every one of the individuals that come to the table, of what their experience and their prior experience of what sisterhood looks like to them. So if they're the person that goes 1,000 miles for someone, in their mind, sisterhood is if you go 1,001 miles for me. And someone else may be in the thought process of, maybe I was the baby sister and everybody did everything for me and I was spoiled. So in their mind, sisterhood means you meet my needs whenever my needs need to be met. Sorry, Facebook. Y'all gonna have to holler at me on YouTube because Facebook is acting up to me. If you hearing me and if you can understand what I'm saying, let me get a holla holla. Sister Alexis, welcome to the conversation. Katrina, what's going on? Yes, I'm doing this. Shout out to Katrina. Katrina said, Amuna, can you talk about this? So I'm gonna talk about it a little bit. This is just a little insight so that we do not get frustrated. I can't say do not. We'll alleviate the pressure and the stress and the frustration from assuming that everyone is going to operate in the way in which we operate. That is not true. And so you look at, did the person grow up with sisters? Did the person, what birth order was that individual? How was they treated as the sister? Are they the dominant personality? Are they the codependent personality? Are they the baby that was babied? And so that person expects everybody to do whatever they, because all of that pre-existing baggage is what we bring to this space called sisterhood in this case. And so because women are intuitive for the most part, what we do is we read into situations and then project our understanding on the situation and feel as though we don't really have to talk to you because intuitively I already know X, Y, and Z. And that causes an issue because we're basing what we feel intuitively on what we have experienced. It can be true. I'm not saying that that doesn't have merit, but there's spaces where it cannot be true. And so because sisterhood has gotten a bad rap, when we come into a space where personalities may clash or people may feel challenged, then we get this whole lioness vibration where it's like, rah, 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 rah. That's what the thought process of, oh, women are catty. We get this lioness vibration of emotions is flowing. I feel offended because of what I think you did, and X, Y, Z, and it gets all muddy and crazy in there. Personally, I have sisters, but I didn't grow up with my sisters. And so I grew up around more male energy, a lot of male energy, okay? And so even though as I grew, I had a cousin who I was close to, but it wasn't in a space where there was a lot of female energy, because in that generation of my family, there was just way more boys than there was girls. In this generation, there were way more girls than there are boys, so it kind of balanced. But in my generation, it was way more boys than there are girls. So personally, my approach to sisterhood is different. Like I am more sort people out first. Like if you, like right now I have sisters who I've known for 20 something years, and they still, you know what I'm saying? Even though we may begin to grow apart, I can still pick up the phone and be like, bam, bam, bam. And I knew you when I was 16, or I knew you when I was 17, or I knew you when, you see what I'm saying? But there are other, it depends on the personalities of the people. That's just me personally. So my experience with sisterhood, Adam, welcome to the conversation, is that I oftentimes get misunderstood because I'm not so open at first. You know what I'm saying? I'm not so, hey, you know what I mean? That kind of way, because I'm the type of person who, I like I said, I'm just more, I'm more, like I said, more male energy was surrounding me. And it's an effort. I have to put forth the effort. I have to realize that maybe my energy does come off strange. So I have to put forth this effort to communicate where I may be misunderstood. So that's me knowing where I'm coming from, and then have to understand that maybe where someone else is coming from is different. So as it relates to sisterhood, more information, bring out this list quick, fast, and in a hurry. When it comes to sisterhood, shout out to Daphne in the building. When it comes to sisterhood, more due diligence, in my estimation, needs to come out, in where we bond, yes, but have a foundation upon which you're bonding. So when a breeze blows, because a breeze will blow, right? When a step on Montana, welcome to the conversation, it's not if a breeze blow, meaning a controversial breeze, a disagreement breeze, I'm a little bit in my feelings breeze. When that kind of breeze blows, it doesn't just topple over and that's the end of it. You see what I'm saying? And that's what kind of happens when we become fast and furious type of, yeah, girl, and and then a breeze blows, boom, and it's over. I don't like her, and she don't like me, and I'm about to bang on her, and she about to bang on me, and it's like, whoa, what happened here? What's going on, right? And so this is where women oftentimes get misconstrued, and I would just only submit that if we took the time to bond on positivity, but also be aware, if you had a pre-existing friend, that you were bonded because your baby daddy left you, or because you were bonded because you both didn't like this woman over here. Whatever the bond is, you have to assess the bond, because the bond is going to determine the nature of the relationship, and it's also going to determine the response you get when you begin to elevate beyond the vibration that the relationship was formed on. So for instance, if you met up with somebody in kindergarten, high school, middle school, and you have grown since then, and they have not, a lot of times when we know a person from way back when, they always want to bring us back to that point in time. If the person doesn't respect where you're going, or you don't respect where they're going, there's going to be this turmoil. There's going to be this static. You understand what I'm saying? Shout out to Sister Mayana in the house. You know what I mean? And so I would say, if we can in some way have these hard conversations, not just about who we don't like or what's going on over here and over there, have these hard discussions about what are we bonding over? What are we connecting over? And are we going to be able to grow from this point? Or am I going to be able to let the individual go and not muddy their name? This is another thing that sometimes happens when things don't necessarily go our way, is that the next response is, I don't like you, and I'm going to make sure don't nobody like you either. You see what I'm saying? Again, back to the popular culture. Y'all have to excuse me because I've been doing a lot of popular culture research, right? So in the popular culture research, again, I couldn't tell you one song that this woman sings, but apparently this woman is in the news now, and people who knew her when are bringing up information about her, about your medical condition, or whether or not the person had herpes. And the Torah talks about somebody who was revealing a secret. If something is something that was confided to the individual, then even if you and that person, like they said, not agree, or meaning you and the person is not agreeing, if there's certain things that if it was divulged in a space that was confidential, then it's against good character to release something that doesn't necessarily, Angel, welcome to the conversation, affect or is needed at that time. But sometimes, and not just sisterhood, brotherhood as well, and man and woman, is that the need to deface the individual makes us feel better about ourselves. We have to be honest. We deface one another in public because it makes us feel good about ourselves and justified in what we're doing. Now, this doesn't, I'm not talking about like some type of heinous crime or some type of Torah transgression. You know what I'm saying? But I'm talking about information, and specifically in this conversation, communication, breakdown of communication and sisterhood, is one will begin to go to other people's to, again, like I said earlier, feel better about their choices and decisions, as opposed to coming to the individual and saying, hey, you know, you stepped on my toe and, you know what I mean, it made me feel a kind of way. That gives you and the person, if it's really a relationship that's worth salvaging, give you and the person an opportunity to hash that out. For instance, when my children come to me, and this happens every day, mommy, such and such did such and such to me. The first thing I ask you, did you speak to them? Did you speak to them? And sometimes, and children are just so transparent, sometimes like one time something happened and my son says, I don't want to talk to her. Because she got me, he's talking about his sister, she got me so mad, I don't even want to see her face. And that was so real to me. That was so unfiltered. I didn't want to laugh and smile, but I was just like, he was real in that moment. Like, when we are not in agreement with somebody, when you look in that person's face or when you speak directly to that person, that's soul to soul connection. And when there's a cutoff or when there's static, you don't even want to be in that person's presence. And we could take this to the garden. When we look at the garden situation, when there was a disconnect from the creator says, I don't even want you in my presence. And that's what happens in communication, right? Communication breaks down. There's a violation. I don't even want you in my presence. And so it's the natural progression to where either you give yourself time, you don't speak in anger, you process, so that when you come to the conversation, it's not necessarily you. It's, this is what happened. What do you think happened? What did you hear? What did you see? And this is where I was coming from. Because again, we all have our idiosyncrasies, we all have our hangups, we all have our indifferences. So I touched on that. Sisterhood, communication, it's not something that happens overnight. It has to develop, and we have to be able to repair the breaches when there is a breakdown, right? If anybody has anything to say, feel free to share. Facebook seems to be up. I guess I took it out of the corner, so it's working better now. And YouTube is up. So if you have anything to share, feel free to do so. There was something else I want to talk to. What else is on this title here? It's communication. It's forbidden practices. Again, this is current events, right? So again, it's coming up more and more. Or like they say, if you get a black car, you see black cars. You get a yellow car, you see yellow cars. It's when now it's brought to your attention, then I guess the subject matter becomes amplified and magnified. And we have this conversation that's continuing about forbidden practices. And not really understanding, I guess the people are not really understanding, because if your great-great-granny and your great-great-grandfather did it and they got a bad result, my confusion is, why are you thinking that you can do the same thing and get a different result? That's the definition of insanity. That's what they say. So it is insane to think that we're going to repeat a shortcoming. We're going to repeat the short-sightedness of our ancestors by appealing to, and I spoke a little bit about this before, appealing to either spirits, disembodied peoples, which souls without bodies, that you're going to appeal to the natural elements to get the answers or the direction that you're looking for in your life. I think they did that already. I'm just saying. It's been done already. And so if we look at the fact that it's been done already, and now I'm on to another topic, sorry. But if we look at the fact that it's been done, and this is just short, we'll come back and talk another time. But if we look at this fact that it's been done already, and we look at the fact that it did not yield the fruit that it was expected to yield, like what you need to know, like they say, you pay taxes, you know, what doing things that you know, you're born so-called black, you pay taxes and you die, or whatever color you are. These are the things are for sure. So oftentimes, because of the immaturity in the spirit, because of the lack of connection to source, because of the ego. We tend to want to know what's going to happen before time, in the thought that maybe we can have more control over our life and the direction that we're going. And so a lot of attention and time is spent trying to manipulate others because we refuse to change ourselves. When you look at some of the stuff that people go into, in some of these spaces that they go into, it is to make someone love you, make someone like you, you know, make someone lose what it is that they've worked for so that you can feel better about it. You know what I'm saying? When people are talking about casting spells and casting thoughts and images and projections onto other people, is to manipulate their environment so that they can get the desired result that they want. The reality is there's a back door to that. I don't know whoever you're going to, whoever's not telling you the reality that there is a back door to messing with. And I said that before, and I wanted the brother to come on and talk about it. Maybe we can catch him at another time. But there definitely is a back door to this type of behavior. It does not go unchecked. You understand what I'm saying? There are repercussions for touching and messing around with spiritual things in the capacity that it's clear cut that this is what the individual is doing. So again, we got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. When it deals with problem resolution, and I see Sister Katrina has a question, so I'm gonna come to it. So Sister Katrina, I was going to talk about problem resolution. So you have a question. What do you do when a sister has stopped communication with you and don't know why? Again, there are many reasons that someone can stop communication. If you look at communication, like I've said it before, commerce, we have social commerce or social intercourse. Intercourse is commerce. It's an exchange. So when you go to a store and that store is closed and the hours of operation is supposed to be open, but the store is closed, then you can inquire, hey, it says your store is supposed to be open. Why is your store closed at this time? Meaning, why aren't you open for exchange? If the person be like, you buy or you get out, or I don't want to talk to you, you know, you go ahead and go about your business, then at that time, you can't necessarily force someone to converse with you. I know it's going to be this nagging question about why such and such doesn't want to converse with me. But the reality is people have choice in the same way we have choice. And so it's either we give them time, we let them know, hey, whenever it is that you want to come and speak to me, you can, and you leave the door open for that exchange to happen. But the reality is we can't make anyone speak to us if they're not in the space to yet want to speak to us. Sometimes the Most High takes people who are no good from your life. This also happens as well. Sometimes we want to attach ourselves to people who the expiration date, for lack of a better word, has come. Like you have grown past that stage. For instance, when the plant is growing, it has leaves, right? And as the plant continues to grow, that first set of leaves that popped off, as the plant continues to grow, those leaves pop off. It doesn't mean that the plant hates the leaves. It means that the plant has now begun to evolve, and those leaves that were once nourishing are no longer nourishing. And so you see them turn brown and they fall away. And some people are for, like they say, some people are for seasons. We are in some people's lives for seasons. Some, you know, you don't, your kindergarten teacher doesn't necessarily stay with you your entire life. Doesn't mean you hate your kindergarten teacher. It just means that the kindergarten teacher came to do what she did, and now she's doing that for other people. What do you do when you can't ask them because they're cut off all ties? That is true. Remove the bad spirits. Right? Yeah, if they've cut off all ties and that's just where they are at that present time, shout out to Sister Fancy, then again, it's about the respect level. This is what any relationship is built on, right? A level of respect. If the person does not want to talk, they don't want to talk. You see what I'm saying? We may sometimes push the issue because as people, like you said, well, I want to know why you don't want to talk. So I'm not going to pretend like you be like, the person don't want to talk. Be like, oh, that's fine. You know, I totally understand. Especially as sister, be like, yo, what's wrong with you? I called the homegirl just today. She was like, yo, I'm in a bad mood. I'm like, yo, let me give you a joke. Because that's me. I'm like, yo, let me give you a joke. You know what I'm saying? But then if the person seriously does not want to speak to you, what can you do? You know, if they come around, then they come around, and if they don't, you have to leave. But you know, there's email now, there's communication where it can be this one-way communication. You can send a text, you can send an email, you can leave a voicemail, and if they heard it but they don't want to respond, then at that point it's on them. Sad thing is, we know when we should let someone go, but are too stubborn to do so. So then the Most High helps you out and makes that, yeah. Nature will, like for instance, there's a tree. And again, if we observe nature, all that we need to learn is this. So there's a tree in the backyard, and it's a big palm tree. I've never seen, here in Florida, where I live, there's a lot of palm trees, but they're little. But this is a very big, you probably seen me sit outside. It's a very big palm tree, right? And what I noticed is that when new palm fronds come up, the lower palm fronds begin to get brown. And so because it's unsightly, I'm the type, like, I'm gonna pull this palm frond off. But it's kind of like fingernails or certain things that are on our body. If the time is not yet right for it to come off, it's going to be really difficult to disconnect it. So at first I started like yanking the palm frond, and I'm saying, and pushing it this way and pushing it that way, because it's kind of dying and it's brown, but it's really still connected to the root. You can see all of the root systems. You can see that it's not coming off easily after all my pushing and pulling. This is what people are. When we try to force people out of our lives and other people's life before we've learned a lesson, or before they've reached the maturity of that necessary relationship, then it's painful. You ever seen, again, it's Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. And so we're talking about when you see somebody in a situation that's clearly exploitive, it's clearly domestic abuse, and we're like yanking that person off of that person, like, you need to get rid of him, girl, because he ain't good. And that person is feeling that pain of disconnect because they are not yet ready to release. So fast forward to Buna, you know, yanking the palm frond that refuses to let go. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's not the time. When it is the time, and I go back outside and I see said palm frond that is now hanging and dangling off the tree because I done jacked it up. And Shiloh's laughing because she thinks it's funny. They've seen me out there like beating up the palm frond. Then now it's easy. I can easily just take it and it comes off with no effort. That's nature telling you now is the time to release, because they said people come in our lives either for a blessing or a lesson, right? And so when the time to release is when that lesson has been learned. Because if you don't learn the lesson, it's going to come back and it's going to, Sequila, welcome to the conversation. Shamarie, welcome to the conversation. When we don't, and if we don't learn the lesson, if we push that person out of that individual's life before the time, for instance, in the case of domestic abuse, all they're going to do is claim it's Johnny. And if you've been listening to me, Johnny is one of my favorite words. No offense if your name is Johnny, right? Chris, Ray Ray, Poo Poo, whoever it is, they're going to be, all they're going to do is find a new Poo Poo. Because you forced that person. They didn't realize the root cause of why they attracted that individual in the first place. And people also attract, in Sisterhood, because that was the title, right? And I'm trying to stay on task. In Sisterhood, we also attract sisters that mirror our issues and our damage and our shortcomings, right? And so if we have to be aware of that, this is why I'm big on self-awareness, what I call Solonomics, what people call, you know, because I'm big on this, because this is when we know ourselves, when we identify our issues. And by the way, this light is like blazing. Y'all see my eyes gleaming. It's not because I'm on nothing. It's the light like hitting my eye. But next time I'm gonna come with my little glasses on. But anyway, let me read the comments. Sometimes we take seasonal people and try to make them permanent. This is true. Katrina says, does Matthew 18:15-17 not apply to us in this walk anymore? Am I assuming that go to your brother or your sister and tell him what the issue is, Katrina? We have to, for me, my experience is that there is what we know to do, and then there is what we do. And there is a big gap between what we know to do and what we do. And we know intellectually what to do. If you study, if you've lived, if you've experienced, then intellectually, Shaul, welcome to the conversation, you know what to do. But emotionally, the emotional intelligence does not, and there's something called an emotional intelligence, an emotional IQ. The emotional intelligence does not always meet the intellectual intelligence. And to be honest about where we are as people will help us to I want to say stop. It will help us to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Be more grounded in the reality of what we're experiencing across the board. Okay? People are coming from all walks of life. And in this day and age where information abounds, some are looking for self-improvement, some are looking for justification, some are looking for validation, some are looking to fill their childhood wounds, some are looking for whatever it is they're looking for. And so to assume that everybody is in the space, whether you be in the church, whether you be in the mosque, wherever it is that you are and you find yourself, to assume because it's written that the person is actually going to do it. We have to come to, well, I know that I'm not supposed to be doing this thing. Why am I doing this thing? That's for each and every individual, because we're looking for something from people that we don't even give ourselves. And that is one of the major problems that I see. If you look at the political arena, you look at CNN, and you look at all these places that just give me a headache, they're holding other people to, again, this idol status that they themselves don't even hold themselves to. And if you turn the light around or you turn the camera around, then the excuses will begin to flow. Well, you know, I'm trying. Well, you know, such and such and such, right? And so when we hire our expectations for ourselves and actually practice the things that we are preaching and practicing the things that we are expecting other people to do, then this sets a precedent. This gives an example that others can say, listen, then we can say, I have dealt with you with respect. I have dealt with you with honor. You have violated me. So we have to set the bar. Each and every individual that's looking for that in other people, we have to set that bar. I'm saying if you have a problem with someone, you're supposed to come to them first. Then if they don't hear you, go to witnesses and so forth. Vanessa, welcome to the conversation. This isn't happening, which takes me back to communication. Correct. Communication is breaking down, Katrina, in many spaces. Social media, in our homes, is because we lack respect. This is what I'm boiling it down to. Let me know if I'm bugging out. We lack respect. We don't love our neighbor as we do ourselves. Our feelings are worth more than other people's feelings. My pain is more than your pain. You hurting, but not the way I'm hurting. And so because we lack respect, and we look at the word respect, I broke it down many years ago, and we look at this word respect, we lack that, okay? And so the other person is diminished oftentimes in our eyesight, either because we lacked when we were growing, either because we need to feel more than, greater than, bigger than everyone else. And so I don't want to hear what you have to say. You're not really hurting. I didn't really hurt your feelings. And then there's another space. So that's one space. Another space is we don't like reproof and we don't like truth. Because we're in a world where girl, do you, boy, do you, do as you will. It's your world, boo. You know what I'm saying? We're living in a world where it's my space, my page, and about y'all who welcome to the conversation. Right before MySpace, it was before Facebook was MySpace, if y'all remember back that far. Okay, and so because we've become very territorial, it's late, in our interactions, we're all in this little barricade for the most part. Because, you know, I personally don't like generalization. So for the most part, we've barricaded ourselves in, and this is how we communicate. We hurl some stuff over the wall, bam, and hit somebody. And we'd be like, hit dog, holla. You feel me? And so we're playing, instead of interfacing and interchanging, we have like these big plexiglass walls up, and we don't trust each other, and there's no real connection, and I'm hurling words at you, and I'm laughing when I see you fall, and all of this stuff is going on. You can't connect in that way, honestly and truly, right? Okay, we have Deep Mind Unravel says, hey, there is also tit for tat. Okay. Alicia, welcome to the conversation. There is also tit for tat. Tit for tat. I'm not going to be the bigger person. You did this, I'm going to do that. Now, that has a place. I will say that showing the person or being a mirror for that person has a place, because when we do become disconnected, when we do become self-absorbed, we can't see ourselves. And so sometimes when you reflect to the person their image, it makes them angry. But it also opens the door to say, hey, this is how you look. Because if we always absorb, and that's why I say it really is, it depends on the situation. If we always elect to absorb the offense, the person may never learn, because they will never. Why my daughter brought me the glasses? Hold on, y'all. Shiloh, I look like the glasses. I need cooler glasses than these, Shiloh. The glasses look like we got them from the health fair. Oh yeah, we got them from the health fair. Brittany, welcome to the conversation. So there's so many dynamics with communication. I'll just say this. Maybe take more time and effort to invest in communication, understanding it, working on our style. And that's another thing. We all have different styles of communication. And some of our styles of communication may offend others. Like my communication style, I have to use myself for example, and feel free to use yourself for example. I'm very, for the most part, I have learned over the years. Hallelujah. I'm more blunt. I used to be really blunt. Like I observe. I'm not the person who first I take a while to observe. I'm not the person who, like, I see something, I say something. No, I'm the person who will be sit back and watch and just pay attention and assess. I've always been an assessor. And then when I speak, it's like I'm holding no punches. But because for me, that gets everything on the table. It is what it is, and we can move forward. But when you have someone who's more timid, or somebody who's more aloof, or somebody who doesn't feel comfortable expressing themselves, then you have like, well, what's wrong with you? Then you have like this intimidator to, you know, the person who's cowering in the corner type situation going on. And so over the years, I've learned to temper. I mean, it's still a little rough, working on it, but I've learned to temper this, what some people have told me in times past is an intimidating quality. I'm aware of it. So let's just say that I see awareness was spoken of on here. So I'm aware of it. Are you aware of your communication style? Are you aware of how, when you look in a mirror or when you look at this camera, you can see yourself. When you're going to take your selfie, you make sure your thing is all nice and your thing's all nice, because you're aware of how you look and you're aware of how you're presenting. So the question now is, in our communication styles, are we aware of how we're coming across? Because sometimes we're like, I didn't know I was loud, or I didn't know I may feel contentious, or I didn't know my energy was just so strong. This is just who I am. And that's what we result to oftentimes, which may frustrate people in communication, is that this is just who I am. Just get used to it. You just gonna have to deal with it. That's equivalent to somebody that's shutting their screen door on you and saying either you buy or you get out, right? You accept it or that's it. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Hopefully that helps somebody somewhere. Be not discouraged. Everything is a teaching moment and opportunity. We don't have to necessarily hide who we are. We have more people who are sensitive, more people who are forward, more people who are reserved. You don't necessarily have to hide who you are, but you do to a certain degree. Like, for instance, when you're going into Nordstrom's or you're going into Calvin Klein store, or you're going into some type of Harrods in London, when you're going into a certain type of store, you're going to present yourself, for the most part, in a certain way, as opposed to if you went into Rainbow or Kmart. They don't even have Kmart anymore. They have Kmart anymore? Or if you went to Walmart. Some people may go into Walmart in the way in which they go into Harrods. But in some spaces, you realize, as you are welcome to the conversation, where you are, and you begin to interface differently. And so hopefully that's helpful. May we continue to grow. May we continue to elevate. May we continue to learn. May we continue to apply the things that we have learned. So I'll say this. It has come up for me in recent times where people may not agree with what it is I say. Like, for instance, even today, I said something to someone based on something that I saw. And the person's response to me, but I didn't do it in, oh, I'm coming for you, I'm banging for you. I just said what I said. And the person's response was, well, that's not what I was referring to. And my response was, well, thank you for the clarity. So if we're not coming, how we come at people is going to determine how they respond to us. For the most part, some people just want to, go ham on people. But if we come like, I'm about to read you, then that's how people are going to respond to us. So I would just say, bethink ourselves, and determine whether or not the relationship is worth salvaging, and whether or not we built the relationship on something that can secure it. And if we didn't, reassess, maybe begin to rebuild it, or allow it to dissolve. So with that said, thank everybody for tuning in. Have a blessed night, y'all. All right, YouTube, it worked. We'll talk to you later.